Nurse Nicole, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Awesome. So let's get started with the presentation today, Cancer Masterclass. The great thing about this presentation today is it's going to apply to you whether you've had cancer, whether you think you may get cancer, whether there's somebody in your family or a friend that has cancer, or you just want to do whatever you can to protect yourself from getting cancer. So it's going to apply pretty much to everybody, and there's going to be lots of actions that you can take from the event. We're also going to have a special offer at the end for anybody that is on the class today, specifically designed for you. I do want to have Nurse Nicole introduce herself before we get started. So why don't you share just a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Thanks for coming. Yeah, I'm a nurse. I've been a nurse for a little under 30 years. My specialty has been community health, home health, and spent my entire career teaching people how to stay healthy, prevent disease, and of course, then treat disease once they've had it. So my biggest concern is that people prevent disease before it happens. And that's part of what Dr. Dennis and I are going to talk about today.
Yeah, it's awesome. So let's get right into it. So how do you think we are doing when it comes to the war on cancer? I believe we've failed. 52 years ago, President Nixon signed the National Cancer Act and vowed to make curing cancer a national crusade. When this happened, obviously, tons of resources, tons of brilliant minds, tons of technology, and tons of money went into fighting this disease that was starting to affect so many people. And again, I would say we've failed on that mission. We're not being very successful. Right now, 1 in 2 men and 1 in 3 women are projected to develop cancer at some point in their life. This is from the American Cancer Society. Cancer is the leading cause of death in Canada. That's Canadian Cancer Society. In 2014 alone, there were 1.65 million projected new cases of cancer in the US and 191,000 in Canada. Cancer is the second leading cause of death in children ages 5 to 14 years old. So that's just horrible. Following only accidents. Again, that's from the American Cancer Society. And it isn't getting any better. It's projected to grow by another 75% by 2030. So I want you just to think about this before we move forward on the slides. Is just think the chance that cancer is going to affect you, if it hasn't already, is almost 100%. If you have a friend, a family member, a spouse, or children, the chance that one of you will get cancer at some point is very high. So everything we're going to do today is going to be, how do we minimize that impact so that the chances are much less, right? We don't want to wait until your house is on fire to try to look at fire prevention. Like what Nurse Nicole was saying, we want to try to do whatever we can to prevent our house from catching on fire in the first place. If we can do those things, it's a whole lot easier than trying to manage it afterwards. So anything you want to share with what you've seen on the cancer side, either from your health side or the nursing side?
Yeah, I mean, I see younger and younger women being diagnosed with breast cancer. I see younger and younger men being diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. So it's certainly not a disease of older people or smokers anymore. So it is becoming a well-rounded disease where, like you said, pretty much 100% of people will know someone or be someone who's affected by it, even at a younger age too.
Yeah, sad. And that's true, unfortunately, for most diseases. So the goal is to never get it or reverse cancer. And in order to do that, you have to know, 1, what is it? And 2, what causes it? We're going to focus a ton on what causes it through this presentation so that we have good tips and strategies, again, to protect ourselves on those fronts. So let's look at what causes cancer. The cause of cancer in all disease is when cells become toxic. Just understanding this slide alone will give you a good framework for the rest of the presentation, and also understanding what you can be doing. So healthy cells, they use oxygen for fuel. Cancer cells use sugar for fuel. The opposite is also true. Healthy cells cannot use sugar for fuel, and cancer cells cannot use oxygen for fuel. The other thing is you need to look at the environment that your body's in. Healthy cells like a slightly alkaline environment, cancer cells like an acidic environment. So just understanding this framework, again, helps set up everything we're going to talk about for the rest of the presentation. But something that is really interesting to me, and I think something that we don't think about often, is your body is designed to function and heal, also to protect you and keep you alive. So it's going to adapt to the environment it's in. So I want you to think about this. If you are never exercising, never getting proper oxygen in, only eating sugar, have a highly acidic diet of refined foods, what would a healthy cell have to do? It would have to die. So what I want you to understand is cancer is actually a defense mechanism for your body to buy you time. I'm going to say that again. Cancer is a defense mechanism for your body to buy you time. So your body would die immediately if it didn't have an option to move into those cancer cells, which would then allow you the time to be able to make the right decisions to move it back in the right direction. So from that framework, cancer is actually a survival mechanism for our body to continue to function as long as it possibly can. And we have a lot of time for that, and we'll talk about that as we go through the presentation. So here's 5 cancer treatments. So if you go the typical medical model, you're going to look at things like chemotherapy, radiation, drugs, surgery, or transplantation. Now, all of these can get rid of the cancer. But the question that I want you to start asking yourself as we go through the presentation is cancer caused by a lack of any of these? I think we all know the answer is no. And I think the other thing is even if we're utilizing these treatments, what can we do to minimize the effects of them? How can we work together with them? Because there's lots of clients that come in to see me that say, hey, I only want to deal with this holistically. I only want to deal with this medically, or I want to do something in the middle. And there's options on all sides that you can move forward with. But I will tell you this, putting toxic things into your body is never going to make you healthier. And 2, even if you remove the cancer you have, it doesn't remove the cause. So if the cause is still there and they cut out whatever that tumor is, the chance of it coming back is very high if you're not working on the holistic side to get to the root cause of what caused it in the first place. And that's why so many people have repeat cancers, because they just do the simple approach of removing it. They feel good, they get their scan, they say everything is clear, and then they go on living the same way they're living. You have to change the way you're living to change what the outcome is for that. So 3 steps to preventing or reversing cancer is 1, we have to stop making the cancer. We have to get to the cause, just like I was just saying. Understand that if you have cancer and it's grown to a point that it's detectable and it's at a dangerous point that it could potentially start to kill you and it needs to be addressed, if you could just stop it at that point and not allow it to progress any further, you could live the rest of your life that way. So the first step is stopping it. We need to stop it from being produced more. 2, we need to specifically and safely kill those cancer cells. And then 3, we need to rebuild and strengthen the immune system. Anything you want to add on any of that, Nurse Nicole?
No, I agree with the entire 3 steps for prevention. And you know, it really just is screaming diet change, movement. You know, all of it is really you know, can be much improved by diet and other things that you can do to prevent and help prevent those cells from changing.
And you know what's so great about those 2 things, diet and exercise, are there are things we have control over, right? I always say my best patients in the practice are my cancer patients. They'll do anything I ask, they'll pay anything, they'll go anywhere, they don't make excuses. If it's a family birthday party, they'll follow the plan.
Yeah.
And it's because they're scared, right? And it's scare and fear sometimes that move us into that position. We don't have to wait till we're at that place. We can make the decision now that we would rather be preventative and move in the right direction rather than wait till we're forced into making that decision. So this is a slide that I always find so interesting is when a cancer cell is growing, it will double every 90 days. So if you look at 90 days, there's 2 cells. And before I go through this further, it's important for you all to know that we all have cancer cells. Your immune system is constantly killing them so that it doesn't continue to grow. But everybody has cancer cells in their body all the time. The key is are we feeding them or killing them? And once we are feeding them more than we're killing them, that's when this starts to happen. So within a year, that's going to go to 16 cells. And doubling starts to happen pretty quickly. So at 2 years, 256, 3 years, 4,000, and you can see down to 8 years here, you're already up to 4 billion cancer cells. That's 32 doublings. Now, something that's interesting to note is that it is at this point that a mammogram will find this and it will finally be detectable. So if you've had testing where they can find the cancer, chances are that's been present for 8 years prior to you even knowing. So your body's already been in this toxic state and it's already been creating these problems for a long time. And it's at 40 doublings, which is approximately 2 years later, that cancer would be considered lethal. So you have this like 8 years of this preventative side, and then you have this 2-year window that you move into crisis side that you need to make some decisions really quickly. And obviously every cancer is a little bit different, but this is just a general rule when we're looking at this and trying to understand how this is happening inside of the body. So how do we kill cancer? Cancer cells have weaknesses, and we can use this to our advantage by looking at what those weaknesses are and then using our, again, exercise and nutrition and mindset and other types of things to set ourselves up so that we are killing them and they're not growing. So one of the things we can do is starve the cancer, eliminate all sugars. So one of the first things you can start doing today is minimize or cut out, if you have cancer, any sugars and refined carbohydrates. You want to minimize that as much as possible. Cut off the cancer's blood supply. So there's things you can do called anti-angiogenesis to help cut off the blood supply. And we could do some of that with exercise. We'll talk about that later. Fix the environment, acidic to alkaline, less prepackaged foods, less junk food. Make sure that you are having less sodas, other types of things like that nutritionally, and just eating more clean, more organic veggies, less toxicity. Induce apoptosis through epigenetic manipulation. So the great thing here is apoptosis is just a word that means kill the cell. The cell actually dies. 97%, I believe now, they say that through diet, exercise, and lifestyle, we can actually turn on and turn off our genes. So for a long time, we thought that our genetic predispositions to certain things meant that was going to be the outcome. The reality is now that we know that we can control that through epigenetic manipulation, it's more like having a bullet in a gun if you're predisposed, but your behavior is what pulls the trigger. So we can change those and move in and out of building or killing cancer based off of the decisions we're making and how we're utilizing those. And we can use testing and other types of things in the office to make sure those are optimized, because sometimes you have no idea. And we'll talk more about that in the presentation as well. Balance hormones in your body to eliminate estrogen dominance. If you're estrogen dominant, and we'll talk about this later too, looking at some testing, estrogen and testosterone promote growth. They allow healing, but if cancer cells are present, they're also going to promote growth of those cancer cells. Correct nutritional deficiencies, make sure you're eating clean, and we can employ cytotoxic botanical compounds and supplements to kill these cancer cells. And then you want to cut down and reduce inflammation as much as possible. Again, inflammation leads to every disease in the body. Anything you want to add on that, Nicole?
Yeah, I think that exactly just what you said at the end about inflammation causing everything, all of the disease. The other thing that I wanted to just point out is the estrogen dominance. A lot of that is caused by poor metabolites, in the liver not processing things correctly. Why is the liver not processing things correctly? Most likely poor diet and just over toxicity of processed foods, processed items, and it all will go together if everything it is most things we is are going to be high quality and non-processed, no pastries, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And food is highly emotional, right? I think that's one of the other things. It's like it's challenging sometimes to make the changes till you're forced to make those changes. I think again that's why cancer is so powerful at making people make changes. But again, we don't have to wait for that. So let's talk about rebuilding the immune system. So nutrition, find your food allergies. We do testing for that. We'll talk about the testing as we go through, and follow a customized nutrition plan. There's lots of times that you are eating foods every day that are not supporting your body, that you believe are healthy because you either read it somewhere or you've heard it's a good thing. Like I've had like broccoli be an inflammatory food that's stressing out the immune system. You would never guess that. So you need to do testing. Do a doctor-guided detox, support your liver, make sure you're clearing out these toxins. The environment is very toxic now. We can only control so much of that. So it's important to do a detox every so often to clear that out. If you've never done a doctor-guided detox, that's something we can help you go through. Looking at the gut, you need to remove any infections. I would say 85+% of the patients that I test their stool, they have either a yeast, a parasite, or some bacteria that's in there that hasn't been found that is creating damage to their gut, causing either a leaky gut or inflammation. And then when all of these other areas are off, that's going to deplete your hormones. Think of your hormones like money in a bank account. And when these stresses are there, these are there to pay the bills. They're trying to heal and they're trying to recover. But if all of these things are damaged beforehand, these hormones are really low and it doesn't allow your body to keep up and heal and do what it needs to be doing. Let's look at sugar again for a second. So this is something that drives me crazy on the medical side is lots of times they'll tell my patients, what you eat doesn't matter. Just eat whatever you want. We'll take care of it. But when you look at PET scans, they use radioactive sugar to identify cancer. And the reason they do this is cancer cells eat sugar like we were talking about. So that's how the test actually works. They give you the radioactive sugar and then they see where it lights up on your PET scan. So they're actually feeding your cancer when they do this test and promoting growth and spread. Now, again, their point is they're doing it to identify the problem, but not looking at sugar as one of the culprits and things that should be controlled. It is a big challenge. It's necessary, again, to cut out all your sugar to starve these cancer cells. This is even more important if you have things like brain cancer, which use a lot of sugar. Fruit is allowed. The body processes fruit and its sugars in a different way than it does refined sugars and carbohydrates. So cut out those sugars, but this is not including fruit when I'm giving that recommendation. And here's just a couple examples of the PET scans. So you can see where they light up here. And you can see that's where those cancer cells are eating up that radioactive sugar, and then they can see it on the scan. So it's pretty cool, the technology and how they do it. But again, it gives us insights and understanding as to how this sugar is impacting our body when we look at this. So inflammation promotes cancer. Inflammation is basically your body's response to tissue damage. It means damage has already occurred. That's why, like, if you sprain your wrist, it starts to swell. The body is trying to heal, is trying to recover from that damage. So what are things that cause inflammation? We already talked about cutting out sugar, so that's one. Refined carbohydrates, but things like safflower, corn, peanut, and soy oil, these are bad oils. Canola oil, you don't want to have these oils. They promote cancer and inflammation in the body. Things like toxicity, we already talked about. Common allergens like gluten and casein. These are two things you can start to cut out. Dairy is highly inflammatory as well.
Yes, it is.
And then the food allergies, and then psychological stress. Psychological stress is probably one of the biggest factors because it's happening in our mind all the time. Food only happens when we're having meals, but stress is occurring all the time. And I think we live in the most stressful time that anybody could imagine right now. Between everything going on, the world is moving very fast. There's a lot of unrest, financial stresses, all of these different types of things. But if we're not controlling the psychological side, we're going to be in big trouble down the road from an inflammatory and a cancer standpoint.
Dr. Dennis, there's a
Yeah.
question about if you don't want to have a PET scan, what would you do to help identify cancer cells or detox from the sugar after the PET scan?
So the detox is something we could talk about on our call, and we'll give an opportunity for that at the end. I do not know a better test other than the PET scan to do it. I think the important thing is understanding that how it works, and the more important thing is what are you going to do before and after the PET scan in regards to having the sugar in. And I think there's something that can happen mentally as we go through this talk, and how I live my life is I almost act as if I have cancer every day because I know I do. I just don't know how much I have and those things. So I don't typically look outside of testing, because even if I had a PET scan and it showed me I had cancer, it's not going to change the way that I operate on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. Yeah, it has to be a lifestyle. And
yeah. So that's the way I would approach it. But that is the best test we know of to identify it. Did that answer all the questions?
We have another one. Our natural sugar is okay in moderation. Maple syrup, honey, coconut sugar, monk fruit seems to be erythritol based. Fruit sugars are fine. Like Dr. Dennis was saying, they are metabolized differently. Maple syrup is a sugar, and so is coconut sugar. Those would be, even if they're natural, they would be processed in the body like regular sugar would be.
Correct. And it's also important to look at your food testing because, for example, apples might be on your list, or monk fruit might be on your list, so you want to be able to look at your list and know what that is. Usually I'll do a food test for myself, for my family every year or two. Usually it's what I recommend for my patients because it does change. But just having that gives you kind of like a framework of, hey, this is what I'm going to deal with in regards to inflammation and be ahead of that. So
yeah. And erythritol tends to be a very almost caustic ingredient to people's digestive systems. I wouldn't recommend erythritol if it's in monk fruit. There are some monk fruits that do not have erythritol or alcohol sugars, but I would stay away from erythritol.
That's one of the biggest side effects I've seen to like holistic healthy sugar alternatives is it can cause gut issues, like same with xylitol. But yes, I mean, there are alternatives, but again, like, here's something to think about. We're actually not supposed to eat things that are really sweet and sugary. One, they make us want to eat more of it. And two, it's not something that the body is made to take in on a regular basis. Our culture has changed that significantly. And that's why so many kids are diabetic now, cancer's high. If you are eating things that are more bland, you're going to eat healthier and you're going to eat less. So it will also help with weight and other types of things. So just something to think about. And I'm not saying never have desserts, right? Like I think everybody's craving sugars and other types of things that taste good. Have it, but have it in moderation, and don't see it as a main staple. Have it as a small thing that you're having as a treat or something when you're doing well with all of your other choices.
Right. And fruit is, a nice sweet option. Berries are one of the foods that is the anti-angiogenic foods that you listed earlier. Lots of berries, lots of fruit are on that list. So that's a double whammy. You can have the fruit as your post dinner, sweet treat. And then you're also getting the health benefits of that to help starve those cancer cells too, as well.
Yeah, we always say in our house that fruit is God's candy.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way to think about it.
Yep.
So here's a picture here of a healthy and an unhealthy digestive tract. You can see in the right picture that the mucus lining is starting to get damaged. Only certain things are supposed to get through this cell layer here. And again, this is just showing one cell layer of the gut, but you can see the damage on this right side, and things are getting through. That's stressing out the immune system. So again, you need to make sure, again, there's no infections, the gut is healed. This is usually one of the first things I focus on with clients in the office, because we want to make sure you're absorbing the nutrients we're giving you, but also stopping what shouldn't be going in, because it's just an additional stressor that adds to the body.
Yeah. And what causes that is food allergies or food sensitivities, highly refined foods as well, antibiotics that you've had in the past that you've never healed your microbiome from, or like Dr. Dennis was saying earlier, parasites or bacteria that you don't know you have. All that causes the leaky gut syndrome.
Correct. Yep. And that's why testing is so important, because you're not going to know those things without looking at it and then coming up with a plan. It's like you would never rebuild a house without, talking to somebody about a plan or measuring first. Mm-hmm. Like, you're going to spend way more money, time, and energy if you just try to eyeball everything. Like, it would just be crazy. But we don't think like that in the holistic world. And again, most of the testing you get from medical doctors is incomplete. It's just to look at what can I do for treatment. It's not looking at what can I do to holistically get to the root cause of these issues. So on the screen right now is an example of a food test. So you guys can see it, because we've been talking about it quite a bit. And I'll have Nurse Nicole talk about kind of what her thoughts were when she got her first food test. But if you can see, like, broccoli's in the moderate column here, right? Like bison severe. So this patient, like, would be eating like watermelon, think they're doing something good, and actually creating damage. And most people I test on this are eating at least one of those inflammatory foods every day. Mm-hmm. If not, they're certainly eating one every week. And think about it like a pebble in a shoe. It's just like, if you do it once, it's okay, right? But if you keep walking on it, it gets worse and worse and worse and damages the foot. So give kind of what your thoughts were when you had your food test and we started to work through this.
Yeah. So when I got mine, of course, like you said, there was lots of things that I ate every day. I'm kind of a veggie junkie. So I had asparagus, broccoli, like kale, everything, in my moderate column. And, turkey, chicken. I think turkey was in my red and my green column. But there were several things that I could not eat, that it was like my staple. We all kind of have our staple foods. We all kind of have the same thing for breakfast, all the same thing for lunch. Usually, dinner's kind of the wild card. So I had to basically, for the 30 days, just eat and make my meals as enjoyable as I could from everything on the green column. And frankly, I loved it. I was okay with switching. It took me a few days to kind of make my plan and get my food going from day to day. One thing to remember is, right at the beginning, these are foods that you don't have to completely cut out forever. The red cone is suggested to remove for 6 months. The orange and yellow are for 30 days. And then there's a reintroduction phase. And what this is doing is, there might be a food that you don't have a sensitivity to. However, in the environment that it's being introduced in, with the inflammation in your gut, the inflammation from other things, maybe you're eating it with a food that you do have a sensitivity with. That's why it's coming up on these pause columns, the green, the yellow and orange. So it doesn't mean that these are foods that you'll never be able to eat again, or you're allergic, quote unquote, or you're sensitive to all these foods. What it means is, we need to give your your system time to heal with foods that are not affecting you at all right now. Environment affects your gut as well. So let's say, in a year you move to a different office building, or you move to a different home, or, you're in a different outdoor environment because you move across the country and the trees are different. That can all affect how you react and how your system reacts to foods as it's being processed, digested. So that's why part of the reason Dr. Dennis recommends doing something like this once a year, because stress comes in all different factors. It's not just like, oh, I'm in traffic, or my, job is hard, or my kids are driving me crazy. It's a lot that has to do with your environment, and basically everything that you experience every day can be a stressor or not. So I enjoyed my 30 days. And then I also enjoyed my reintroduction phase. I found a couple things that bothered me, but for the most part, once I did that 30-day healing of resting my intestines, resting my colon, decreasing all the inflammation that I had with supplements that you recommended to me, and that I implemented through that 30 days, I felt better exponentially after doing that. And then of course going on into the stool testing and the liver detox as well. So
yeah, because we're doing two parts there, right? We're stopping making damage, but we're also giving your body nutrients to support healing. So
right.
There's a lot of different parts that go into it. It's not just avoiding the foods, but that's certainly a critical part, because if we're trying to heal and you keep creating damage, then you're working against yourself. So again, that's why the testing is so important, and it's specific to you, so we can come up with that customized plan. Nobody that goes through our program ever has the same diet or the same. Everybody is different. So that's what makes my job fun, but also requires quite a bit of work on my side to make sure that it's individualized. So let's talk about vitamin D. So research shows that vitamin D is very effective at helping to kill cancer cells. Jo Ellen Welsh, who was a researcher from the University of New York and was featured on ABC News and Good Morning America, found that within a few days, half of the cancer cells shriveled up, equal to that of a current breast cancer treatment. So that's incredible. Imagine, like, you have two options. You can use a toxic chemical, and you could use vitamin D and have the same effect. I'm sure this wasn't out a lot on the news, and it wasn't pushed because, again, there's not a lot of money. You can't patent vitamin D. But vitamin D is a very powerful tool that you can start using now to put into your plan.
Yeah, I in my practice, in my coaching practice, I will evaluate people when they have their labs taken, and I think 99% of the people that I see have low vitamin D levels.
Yeah, for sure. Even my clients in Florida are usually deficient because
Texas,
they're not getting enough in, and just not where it needs to be. So this chart I love, because if you look again at the medical side, and when you get vitamin D tested by your provider, they're looking, if you are above 20, they say that's okay. If you're below 20, that's when they say we need to work on this. But if you look at this chart, that covers you from rickets. Okay, that's why vitamin D was originally used. That's what the testing is used for from a medical side. And Nurse Nicole can assure us.
And they're still using that range as a functional,
that is still the
wellness range. Yeah.
But I like my clients to be somewhere between 60 to 80, which is up in this range here. And the reason for that is look, all cancers combined are decreased by 77%. Just by having proper D up to the level of 40. Breast cancer is decreased by 83% if it's up to a level of 52 here. And again, you can see ovarian cancer, 17%, colon cancer, 60% reduction, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, 18%, type 1 diabetes, 66%, fractures, 50%, heart attacks in men, 30%, MS, 54%, kidney cancer, 49%. Look, if there's anything that you can take on a regular basis, I recommend to my patients to take a good multivitamin, a good fish oil, and vitamin D. I recommend that to all of my clients. no matter where they are on their health journey. And this just kind of drives home that point. If you are interested and are not taking a vitamin D or want a good quality vitamin D, the one that I use with my patients that is highly absorbable and helps to change these numbers, and we've tracked it, I just want you to private message me right now your name, email, and cell phone number, and I will send you the vitamin D that we use with the proper dosing, and I will include a 10% discount off your first order. So just do that in the chat. If that's something you want to do, you could do it, like I said, in the direct and the private direct to me, so that everybody doesn't have your information. But that's a good place to start when you're looking at making some of these changes.
I also recommend everybody take vitamin D, a high quality multivitamin, and fish oil as well. Yep,
Yeah.
the big three.
So if we look at oxygen, here's another one we can look at. Cause of cancer is no longer a mystery. We know it occurs whenever any cell is denied 60% of its oxygen requirements. So this was said by Otto Warburg, two-time Nobel Prize winner. So obviously a very smart guy, and realized like we cannot deny the cell's oxygenation. And we talked about that at the beginning of the presentation as well. So can you guys see that I'm like moving the chat screen? I can't read my slides.
Oh,
So oxygen deficiency in the cells is called hypoxia. And that's what leads to cancer, right? Less than that 60%, not having enough. So things that we can do: exercise provides large flows of oxygen into the cells, coupled with a proper ratio of those omega fats. So if you're getting a lot of fish oil in, or supplement with that, that's going to help to get that oxygen to flow into the cell. So this is really important. And here's an example of just a high intensity training that you could do. Takes 10 minutes. So if you can build this in, start with 1 day a week, start with 2 days a week. You could do this, up to 6 days a week. 20 seconds on, goal is get your heart rate up. So you want to do something that's really fast, like a burpee or a jumping jack, or you have other examples for that, Nurse Nicole?
absolutely. Lots of examples. You could do step ups. If you're at home, you have your stairs. You could go up the stairs, down the stairs, up the stairs, down the stairs, or even up to, down to, up to, down to, for 20 seconds. Jumping jacks, jump rope, anything, elliptical. If you have a Peloton at home, you can, I'm sure they have HIIT workouts on Peloton. Or even if you just have an elliptical, or you're walking outside, just bring that pace up for 20 seconds, like a little power walk, and then rest for 20 seconds. Set that alarm on your phone. There's all sorts of interval, training alarms that they have as apps. If you want to make it real simple, you can program one of those.
Yeah, and like if you search for this, there's lots of other variations that you can do for this. This is just an example.
Tons. Yeah, all you got to do is search.
Yeah, and it really goes based off of how in shape you are. So if we're saying some of those exercises and you're like, I can't do that, you might be just, some people can get their heart rate up walking in place.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Some
You
people
walk,
are going
exactly.
to need to do hardcore burpees for
Exactly.
the 20 seconds. So the goal is not how intense the exercise is. It's the intensity level has to get to a place where you're getting almost out of breath and you feel like your heart rate's up. You do that for 20 seconds, then you take a break, calm down, do 20 seconds on, 20 seconds off. And you just repeat that cycle of those 3 rounds with 5 exercises, and that's 10 minutes. You will have a great workout, and you will help to get that oxygen level up. So again, just an easy thing that you can start doing today.
I would recommend also, guys, during that rest period, and really all the time, as much as you can, is to breathe through your nose. Nasal breathing is an important thing that we've kind of gotten away from in our society. It is highly, it improves your oxygenation of your blood, helps your cardiovascular system. So when you are doing one of those HIIT workouts, or 20 seconds on, 20 seconds off, or even just walking, close your mouth. Keep your mouth closed as much as you can. If you notice that you breathe through your mouth, try your best. Again, it's just like learning yoga. If you say, oh, my nose is always congested, it's probably because you never nasal breathe. So practice it. Even if you can nasal breathe for a couple seconds, that's going to help the oxygenation of your blood and your cells.
But yeah, good tip. So let's talk about toxicity for a minute. So the EPA found that indoor pollutants can, in some cases, be as high as 100 times more polluted than the outdoor air. So this is really important for like stay-at-home moms, kids, opening up the windows and just making sure you're picking products in your house that are clean, like vinegar. You don't need to use bleach on everything. There's lots of great quality clean household cleaners. Toxins in household cleaners are 3 times more likely to cause cancer than air pollution. Women taking 1 ibuprofen daily for 5 years increases risk of breast cancer by 50%. If you did that with aspirin, it increases it by 80%. Those are both from the National Cancer Institute. And antibiotic use, not only destroying the gut microbiome like we talked about, but is also shows an increased risk in breast cancer. So we want to minimize, again, these toxins as much as we possibly can, because the body is constantly detoxing. But again, if it's not doing it properly or able to keep up, then it's going to get overwhelmed. So we need to look at those types of things. So let's look at mindset. So this one is so important. And I talk to so many people about this. You have to forgive yourself and others. I want you to take some time when you're done this presentation, and I just want you to think of either things that you're not forgiving yourself or others about and let it go. It is hurting you. It's not hurting the person you're not forgiving as much as it's hurting you. You need to do that. It's really important when you're talking about having a good, healthy body. Got to confront your problems. Don't keep putting things off. The stress continues in your mind and it doesn't solve the situation. Make sure you're taking care of yourself. We talk about a lot in our office, the difference between good selfish and bad selfish. Good selfish is when you're taking care of yourself at the point that you are going to be a better person for your family, friends, and other people that are impacted by your life. If you are pushing off taking care of yourself to take care of others and you're hurting yourself, that is bad selfish. It might feel like you're not being selfish because you're giving to them, but you're actually being selfish because you're not showing up as good as you could be. Be responsible for your life. Don't blame others. Take control of the things you can do. We've given you tons of action steps today. Start with those. Just take responsibility for those things and then become a possibility thinker. There is a great chance that you will not have cancer if you are doing these things. You don't have to live in fear and be struggling with these things for the rest of your life. So mindset is another big thing. Now, I'm going to share with you this slide right here. So this slide shows all of the hormone pathways that occur in your body. So again, when I'm working with a client, one of the first things I like to look at is hormones. The reason being is this is what's going to be depleted, and then we can start to look at where these other problems are. So you can see that this is very complicated, right? Everything that changes affects something else, and there's a lot going on here. Your body is very sophisticated, and it's working at a very high level. So when I work with a client that does this test, I might spend an hour or two looking at their health history, looking at the Dutch, and then figuring out what pathways are going to be affected and how do I change one or the other without impacting the others. If you've ever tried a supplement to help with hormones and something got better and then something else got worse, it's because you didn't address the full picture. You just looked at it a lot like the medical side of just addressing one area. So it takes a lot of work, but this is really important because this is what allows your body to heal and recover. And if you look at this slide, you can see one of the other things on this test. This is called the Dutch test. What we do is we can see how these hormones are being metabolized. So if you see this fan right here with this 5-alpha side, this is a potent metabolite of testosterone that is 10 times stronger than regular testosterone, sometimes even stronger. So it's going to increase replication. So if you have these cancer cells already, chance of like testicular or prostate cancer is much higher. If you look at this other side, these estrogen metabolites, we can also break that down and see what those ratios look like. And if they're off, they lead to DNA damage and then increase things like breast, uterine, or ovarian cancer. So again, with a test like this, back to like that PET scan question or like the mammograms, I would much rather see if I'm headed towards the pathway than to wait until I have those 8 doublings to know I have a problem. So this is a test like I have my daughter do, and my wife does this. I think every female should have this test done. I think every male should as well, but I think the female cancer side hormone is higher than on the men's side. But from a female standpoint, I don't think there's a more valuable test that you could have every year or two to know exactly what's going on with your body. This test also looks at things like toxicity levels. It looks at sleep, stress effects, how well your body's healing and recovering, how well your liver's working. So it gives us a picture of inflammatory markers as well. So gives us a picture of all of that. And this is what I am offering to you guys today as a special. So usually this test is $499. If you went to the Precision Analytics website who creates this test, it's called the Dutch Complete. You'll see it's $499 if you were to purchase it from them. We're doing it only for people on this webinar for $375. And we're also including the $600 consult with me for free. So all you have to do is do the test. You can do the purchase. I'm going to put up a link shortly where you can purchase that test at the discount. You'll also get some wellness intake paperwork from me. All you got to do is put in the shipping information. They'll send you the lab. You can do the test. There'll be instructions there. And then you'll get an email from us as well with the intake form. You got to fill out the intake form. And as soon as the results come in, it usually takes about 2 weeks. I'll interpret it. I'll put that together. And then we will come up with a plan. Maybe it's really simple and I can just give you some easy things. If it's more complicated, we'll talk about what that process looks like as well. Anything you want to share, Nurse Nicole, on kind of your journey with going through the process in the Dutch? And I'll put up that link and then we'll be done.
Yeah, so the Dutch is, extremely valuable, like you said, and it's very eye-opening. It's really almost like looking behind the hood, of your body and your body's workings, and fixing things from the, inside and at the beginning. And it's really, really, really eye-opening and really well worth the investment. Dr. Dennis, I saw somebody post, where is it? Oh, Carmela asked, what do you do if you need antibiotics?
Good question. So if you need to take antibiotics, my recommendation is to take a good probiotic, and we can recommend one for you. Just let us know 2 hours after taking the antibiotic. So that will replenish the good and then also allow the antibiotic to do what it needs to do.
Right. You need to try and replenish, yes, what the antibiotic is killing. And then Lynn asks, is the Dutch beneficial if you've already had cancer? Absolutely, yes, right?
Yeah, I would say it's even more
for anybody. Yeah.
Yeah.
For everybody that didn't see the chat, Dr. Dennis put the link in there for the Dutch test for you guys.
Awesome. All right. I think we covered a lot. I hope everybody's not overwhelmed. And
yeah, I know. Lots.
If you are, take like 1, 2, or 3 pieces and just start implementing, and then, just start building from there. Don't get overwhelmed. It's a lot of work.
Right.
But you're worth it.
Yes, for sure. If you guys need more information from Dr. Dennis, just put your email in the chat and he can get back to you in person, in private, about questions that you might have further.
Yes, for sure. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you, Nurse Nicole, for taking time.
Thanks. Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Yeah.
And we'll talk to you later. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.